From dresses filled with living butterflies to surrealist fur balls stumbling down the runway, today on Arts 24, we are bringing you a roundup of the best and the bonkers from Paris Fashion Week's Spring-Summer 2024 collection. I'm joined on set by our resident runway expert, Jennifer Ben Brahim. Jenny, good to see you.
Hi, Alison.
Word on the street is that fun was really front and center this year.
Well, Alison, I'm very pleased to say that silliness is back at Paris Fashion Week, and that's actually after a few seasons where the trend of a quiet luxury was inflicted on us by the, I have to say, amazing series, Succession, where we saw all these rich people in quite neutral, toned down, kind of boring looks. But as New York Times' legendary fashion critic Vanessa Friedman has heralded, we are seeing the revenge of maximalism, hurrah. And that's really a celebration of, of details and work done by hand, really a counter to technology and the sort of onset of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, hurrah indeed. I'm definitely all about the fun. Tell us more about some of what we've been seeing.
Well, let's actually start with Balmain, who somehow actually managed to put on a shiny and exuberant display, despite just 10 days earlier, a van full of their pieces for this collection was actually held up at gunpoint, and Whoa. Some of the pieces were actually stolen. But the show did go on, and creative director Olivier Roustin wowed with bold primary colours, outfits adorned with hundreds of roses, as you can see there, and quite swooshy golden feathers. Now, moving on to Schiaparelli, who are really renowned for, during their avant-garde haute couture collections, to really kind of bring on quite a show. They brought that to their, this kind of wackiness to their ready-to-wear collections. And from giant gold lobster necklaces to the finale dress, as you can see there, made out of red fake nails. Let's take a look.
That lobster necklace is really a power accessory. Jenny, I know you have two particularly fun, joyful shows you wanted to talk about.
So I absolutely loved Zomer, and they're a new brand, and Zomer means summer in Dutch. Now, the design duo showed for the first time at Paris Fashion Week, and their clothes were super fun, colourful, and as the name suggests, super summery. They even actually ended the show in a really cute way by sending the children, the kind of child equivalents, of the design duo to take a bow, and that's really a reference to their tongue-in-cheek preview campaign featuring images, as you see there, of children as Andy Warhol, Basquiat, as well as Anna Wintour. And another first-time Paris Fashion Week designer is America's Christian Cowett. Now, his show was also very fun, but I think it was a little bit unintentional, as we'll see in these images. Fur was very much front and center in the collection, and so much so that the singer Sam Smith's performance was interrupted by a model dressed as a giant fur ball crashing into him and then sort of being pushed away and pinballing into the audience. So pardon the pun, it was a bit of a hairy moment for the model.
I mean, probably hard for them to see inside that ball, I guess, to be fair. It wasn't all silliness, though, at Paris Fashion Week. Women's rights, as usual, were the main inspiration at Dior.
Well, that's right. And Dior's Spring-Summer 2024 collection comes hot off quite a major PR scoop for the brand. They actually dressed Queen Camilla about 10 days ago for the state banquet at Versailles. And you could kind of say that this collection is quite fitting, as the inspiration behind this year's collection was challenging sexist stereotypes, especially those attributed to women throughout history. And Dior designer Maria Grazia Curie particularly focused on women, seen as being quite dark and dangerous in history, such as witches in the Middle Ages. Now, the outfits remained pretty kind of toned down and somber, which was probably for the best, because they were walking down a runway where there were LED videos behind them in bright fuchsia and yellow of artwork designed by Italian artist Elena Bellantoni. And the videos were sort of like mock advertising images that were, of course, sarcastic and had lines such as "save your marriage, iron properly," and "put on stunning makeup to make up with your man." Let's take a look at these images.
And Jenny, women were honored at the runway at Balenciaga as well.
Yes, but in a much more personal way. Balenciaga designer Demna actually had his mother open the show, as well as other family members and friends. And the soundtrack included a voice of his muse, which is French actress Isabelle Huppert, and even had his husband close the show, you can see those images there, dressed as the bride. Now, the very theatrical set was actually extremely intimate and kind of gave a glimpse into his often very private life and his fashion universe.
And speaking of personal, Stella McCartney's latest collection once again focused on sustainability, something her famous parents instilled in her from an early age. Take a listen to Stella McCartney.
When I think about it, my parents were making and designing clothes too, really, you know? And I used to wear them all, and now my daughter steals them off me. So it's like a whole generational thing as well, of just bringing people together and definitely exploring the Stella wardrobe over the years.
Now, the collection was actually showcased on the streets of Paris, and Alison, she even made a fake market with stands that were packed with sustainable products, which is something that has really become a staple in the Stella McCartney collections. And the market brought in quite a lot of star power, I have to say, from Robert Downey Jr. To Cate Blanchett, as well as reality TV legends Paris and Nikki Hilton.
Ooh, I think I'd love to have access to the Stella McCartney family vintage wardrobe. Someone who was no stranger to Paris Fashion Week, Jenny, was the designer Azzedine Alaïa, who passed away in 2017. Not only was he an incredible designer, but also sort of a secret fashion historian. Tell us more.
Well, Azzedine Alaïa, who was a Tunisian designer, was much loved for his bodycon dresses, and he really was the designer of the 1980s, dressing everyone from Grace Jones to Tina Turner to even Madonna. Now, there's an exhibition taking place at Paris's fashion museum, the Palais Galliera, and it shines a spotlight on his vast private collection that he amassed over 5 decades, from Dior to Chanel to Schiaparelli as well. And it only actually focuses on the collections and the pieces that he collected, and doesn't really have any of his works included in this exhibition. So I actually went to go check it out with Marie Schuster. Take a listen. A treasure trove, some 20,000 pieces of fashion history, collected over 5 decades. The world's largest private collection, squirreled away by the late designer Azzedine Alaïa. 140 creations now on show to the general public at the Palais Galliera Museum.
We knew of this collection. It was almost a legend already, but we couldn't imagine, the quality and the size of this collection, and that is what makes it even more, interesting. We wanted to take the opportunity to recognize his work, his contribution to the constitution of fashion heritage in France.
Born in Tunis in 1935, Azzedine Alaïa set up shop in Paris. Known as the King of Cling, his form-fitting designs were worn by the likes of Naomi Campbell to Madonna.
La sculpture, c'est une chose en tourne autour, c'est un volume. Pour moi, le vêtement, c'est pareil. Donc ça tourne autour du corps.
Construction at the core of his designs, and relationship between the body and garment. An aesthetic inspired by some of the dressmakers he collected.
Alaïa did not necessarily like collecting pieces from some of the leading fashion labels, but preferred focusing on pieces that were timeless. He also collected a lot of black pieces, as structure stands out more.
Alaïa's first step on his journey to becoming a fashion magpie started in 1968, when his mentor Cristobal Balenciaga decided to close shop.
He was invited by Mademoiselle Renée, who was managing the house on a daily basis, and she invited him to come to take things. I mean, because everything was being dispersed, everything was being, sold. It was disheartening for him to see how this, amazing designs by this man he admired so profoundly was dispersed like that, and the memory was going to disappear. So that's when he decided then and there that he had to do something about it, then that he started collecting, and he started collecting Balenciaga.
On display, Chanel, Christian Dior and Schiaparelli, some of the biggest names over the last century in fashion. However, it was important for Alaïa to gather together the works of dressmakers, often women, whose names are today long forgotten.
Madeleine Vionnet is really the designer he admired the most. She was a virtuoso of technique and someone he really placed on a pedestal. Her designs were from the 20s and 30s, layered and neoclassical dresses. She was really one of the names Alaïa wanted to preserve from the 1980s onwards to give her the recognition she deserved.
The collection also includes free costumes by artist Matisse, designed for the Russian ballet in 1919. Azzedine Alaïa passed away in 2017, aged 82, leaving behind his own legacy as well as that of his peers.
All right, returning to the runway now, Jenny, the end of an era for designer Sarah Burton at Alexander McQueen.
That's right. She's actually been heading up the brand since 2010 and the death of Alexander McQueen. And she's been working actually for the house for 26 years. Now, it was a very deeply moving show, and so much so that we actually saw Naomi Campbell visibly moved. She's actually a frequent collaborator with Alexander McQueen brand. So yeah, it was very touching to see.
Oh, and speaking of Naomi Campbell, she's featuring in a new documentary. Tell us about the Supermodels.
Well, that's right. The 90s were really dominated by these supermodels. They kind of reigned supreme. They included Naomi Campbell, as you said, Chrissy Turlington, Cindy Crawford, and Linda Evangelista. Now, this 4-part documentary on Apple TV Plus goes past the superficial and delves into their kind of long-lasting friendships that they created over the years.
Ooh, it sounds like a bit of nostalgia. We'll leave all of you with a look at the Supermodels. Jenny, thank you so much for keeping us up to date with the happenings in the world of fashion. Thanks to all of you for watching. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
When I first was referred to as a supermodel, I was like, why are they calling us this? It wasn't about the hair and the makeup. It wasn't about the fashion. It was about the women. That's what a supermodel